Tell you a tale of a thrush and a snail and the time they swam in the pool.
No. Well, the first bit. So you're going to be doing Let's All Play Our Drums, and then this half of the room will play Lots of Fun. Ready? 2, 3, 4. My musical journey evolved over time from a very young child. We moved into a house in London, a new house, and the previous owners left behind their piano. And so I immediately had access to an instrument which I enjoyed playing with and working out nursery rhymes like Twinkle Little Star, Baa Baa Black Sheep, just as a child, working it out for myself. And when my parents realised what I was doing, they decided to start looking for some tuition, and this happened to be the milkman. So when the man came to deliver the milk, he would show me something quickly on the keyboard, and then eventually I started to have more formal piano lessons. And as I got older, these continued through school. I was lucky, so lucky, to grow up in a part of London where I was in the ethnic minority, and so growing up exposed to the music of lots of different cultures. I remember learning, for example, Indian stick dancing, and always having opportunity to make music with others. And in Brighton, where we moved to when I was about 7, in my primary school, we were so lucky to have a full-time music teacher. Often in primary schools, it's the regular class teacher which would deliver segments of music, but in my school we had the music room, and each class would leave their regular teacher to go and have specialist music sessions with the class teacher. I'm not sure any of my musical journey would have happened to the extent it had we not had that specialist person in place at school. She was so encouraging and promoted lots of group music making throughout school, and because it was so much fun with all of our friends all together, I wanted to continue that when I got to secondary school. At secondary school, I chose the clarinet and pursued clarinet and piano, as well as lots of choirs, doing lots of musical theatre, again just being with lots of people all the time. And something else that was happening for me when I was younger was that my home life was quite troubled. I did not want to be in my family home, and because music was so readily available as a community provision in Brighton, I was able to join as many different musical groups as I could. And so the ensembles and the orchestras and the choirs, they became my safe space for me to be in a happy, enjoyable place, just making music with wonderful people. I pursued further study of music into A-level, and I also did theatre studies, partaking in as many opportunities to do more national competitions. Again, with Brighton Youth Orchestra, we went on many tours of Europe and even as far as Hong Kong, learning about making music with other cultures and taking our own work on tours. So it was a really intensive social experience, perhaps much more so than the act of making the music itself. I went to music college to become a full-time clarinet student, maintaining my piano a little bit. And through my music degree, I did a lot more musical theatre, got myself a saxophone, dabbled on the flute. I don't talk about that too much. I had a fantastic time at music college, developing again these really solid friendships, many of which lasted to this day, and met my now husband, and we moved to Bristol because of his work. I started teaching as it was an immediately accessible job to me. There was plenty of work in schools for me to teach clarinet and saxophone to small groups during the day, but also in the evenings I started doing small ensembles. Saturday mornings I became the senior woodwind coach for the senior music centre in the local area, and again was able to enjoy the social experience which came from facilitating this creative opportunity for young people. It felt like I'd gone around the circle, and all of these opportunities that I'd had, I was now able to start giving back to the next generation. I was lucky enough to get lots of work playing in orchestra pits for musical theatre. I did a lot of work depping for some of the amateur orchestras on bass clarinet. I had a really lovely balance of teaching and performing. And although I did pursue a teaching career as much as a playing career, it's only really later in life that I've looked back and been able to see how important the teaching element of that was for me. So I was living a very happy life, married by now. I had 2 children, and although my work as a musician and teacher had paused because I had my 2 children, they were born very close together, they're about 18 months apart. I had just started to think about returning to work and how that was going to look with a husband who travelled away a lot, 2 very young children. But the decision was taken from me because I had a catastrophic accident and I became disabled. I fell from a height, my leg became trapped between the sides of a ladder, and on the way down from about 11 feet up in the air, my leg just got twisted and everything went crunch and pop. No more foot. Unfortunately, it was misdiagnosed. The extent of the injury was not found for about 18 months, and I had a really hard time not being believed about how much pain I was in. I think the way that I present with pain might be different as somebody who is not neurotypical, and so I was in quite significant pain and walking on a broken foot for 18 months, and over that time my foot became deformed, and I started to suffer quite badly with my mental health because I felt that nobody was believing me. The idea of returning to work with such immense pain and with 2 children, it just didn't happen. Life went on hold, and I had to undergo quite extensive psychotherapy to help manage my mental health, but through that I was given the confidence to go back to the doctor and say, I promise you this is not all in my head, please give me some more imaging. And one day this new doctor believed me and she sent me for more imaging, and it was at that point, which was now 18 months down the line, that they realised how much was missed in that initial presentation at A&E at the hospital. So they discovered I was going to need several more procedures to get my bones back in the right place. Unfortunately, because it had been so long walking on a deformed foot, I also developed osteoarthritis in my hip and my lower back and my foot. So there were all sorts of issues with the shortening of muscles, ligaments. I don't know enough about that to be able to say accurately. But I essentially now have a permanent physical impairment. My final surgery was in November 2023. Of course, just before then, the world experienced the COVID pandemic. And during this time, I lost my dad. My dad died. My dad was estranged to me. I referred earlier on to not wanting to be at home very much, and that was because of the relationship with my dad. My mum did not live with me. And so when Dad died during COVID, this again caused a very significant impact on my mental health, and I just didn't want to engage with the world anymore. You know, I'd become a disabled person, I'd lost my work, I wasn't physically able to get out of the house and enjoy life with my children. My husband was stressed trying to maintain everything at home. But thankfully, I just by chance got paired with the most incredible art therapist. This was through secondary mental health services through the NHS, and this woman, I couldn't have asked for a better pairing for someone to work with me therapeutically. She gave me the space that I needed to just reevaluate my life's priorities and to find out what I needed. You know, the analogy of putting your own oxygen mask on first before you can start to help others. So a lot of intensive work happened on me personally. And through that process, that's really when I started to intensively look at my relationship with music as I had grown up and what I used music for, why I engaged with music, and what going forward I wanted to do with music to re-engage with it therapeutically, primarily for myself. And so I began volunteering, taking some instruments into my son's nurseries, and slowly considering the idea of returning to work. After Dad died, he left me some cash, which I wasn't expecting, but it enabled me to buy my wheelchairs, my good wheelchairs, electric wheelchair, so I could conserve a lot of energy, and also a vehicle which would allow the wheelchair into it, so I could get myself back out into the world. Something that had happened before then, when I was not able to go around much. I began volunteering for a local wildlife organisation called Wild Portishead. And I did that largely because they do a lot of live streaming, they do talks on Facebook, they try and engage the community, get involved with what they can see around them. And one of the men who runs that, his name is Chris Sperring, he has
an autistic son, non-speaking autistic son, and just mooted whether or not I would do some music with Mark. And so that was the first time I'd ever worked with a disabled person making music. We just got some keyboards, some other instruments together and played and had fun. There was no intention really to teach him, but just to make music together.
1, 2, choo choo. Mark, can you find the G, the black G, here and here? That's it. And when I say 1, 2, you have the train. 1, 2. Well done. 1, 2. Well done.
The incredible thing is that Mark is non-verbal and he has lots and lots of different issues. Physically, he's absolutely amazing. Goes on 25-mile walks with me, no problem at all. And the thing is that what Laura has done for Mark is just, honestly, blows you away. Absolutely blows you away. Mark, it's incredible to see him on a Friday morning. Laura has got him doing 3 different things at the same time.
Mark, Fiona the horse meets a dog and they jump into the river. Now play Fiona. Fiona the horse meets a dog and they jump into the river. Fiona. Yeah, well done. That's good, Mark. Well done.
So as a parent of a child with a physical and neurological disability, seeing what Laura did while I was bringing a younger child to her preschool group was something that I could see had value. For me, as a health professional, knowing what barriers my son could face when he's older and the issues around access to activities that will involve the family, involve mixing with a whole variety of people, are invaluable. It's well documented about the discrepancies in health outcomes and long-term outcomes of people with disabilities in our community. And it's also, as Laura works to bring everybody together, it's something that is valuable from the point of view of highlighting that these disadvantages are there within the community and that people exist that are able to contribute. It's just removing that barrier to being able to partake in a way that makes everybody equal. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to be a part of this project. I think the main thing that Laura doesn't feel there should be, or that there needs to be, a SEND day or a disability day. It's open to all at all times. It's her way of bringing that together. And I think unless you've lived through something that, like Laura has, that suddenly you see the barriers that are there, and then are able to adapt your approach or your work to make those people included and a part of what can be done differently to achieve the overall equality, which is one of the things that's really important to Laura in this project. And if there was time and there was resources, we already work with the children, we work with the elderly, we work with the disabled, we want to do more, and it's just finding the time that we can do that to meet the needs of the people and providing it when they want to. So, Laura understands what the barriers are, how to break them down, because she's confronted that and spent her time and resource in developing a way to work with everybody at all times.
I used some more of the inheritance that my dad had left me to get more inclusive musical instruments for me, because I wanted them, and also to see what others were responding to. I'd got the bug back now for engaging with people in a musical way, and rather than just sticking to clarinet, saxophone and piano, I wanted to find more accessible instruments that people could explore in a more immediate way, like the steel tongue drums, like glockenspiels, shakers and tambourines and little drums. And as my collection of instruments grew and Mark was inviting his friends from his care organisations and other groups he attended for disabled people, that is when my community started to grow. And because I was a physically disabled person, all of the buildings that I needed to be in had to be accessible.
Personally, before I met Laura and understood what her work involved, I wasn't aware of the difficulties that people may have in accessing music, creative music, education, etc. Especially when they may have an impairment which, it's just, you sort of think, oh, if you've got a ramp, you can get into a shop. But it's not just a ramp into a shop, but sometimes it's giving people a little bit of the independence and being able to do it. And, it's just that inclusive. And so it's important, I think, that we have not only someone who's committed to providing, the music tuition and to bring people together to play music, but the venues in which to hold those classes and one-to-ones and whatever. Laura is kind of almost like the thrush in a sense. She's bringing people together, and the hole in the shell can represent different things to different people. It could be something that's physical, it could be something that's psychological, it could be something that's missing in your life, a hole. And the thrush kind of helps the snail by fixing it. It doesn't get rid of the hole, it's still there. It may be hidden and not there, but it just helps them go off, form that friendship, binds them together, and they go off and have fun and enjoy themselves. And that's where I think the synergy is, where people, they may have, this impairment or that disability, but they're still able to do and create music.
As I started bringing in more accessible kit, I needed space to safely bring this in and for others to engage with. And it's steadily grown from there. We look for sharing opportunities where we invite people in to see what we're doing. And increasingly, I am using my teaching strategies to work in a much more structured way with this new community and learning more about their needs to help them participate in practical musical engagement in ways that they perhaps haven't ever done before. To facilitate this, I applied to Arts Council England for a grant, a DYCP grant, which stands for Developing Your Creative Practice. And I wanted the focus to be on researching and developing more meaningful ways to make music with disabled and vulnerable people. And the success was incredible with that R&D. Because of that grant, I've been able to go and engage with so many more micro communities. And have fun with it and take the time to learn about different people's needs. Something which I must keep reminding myself is that disability is a new thing to me. I'd already completed about 20 years of life as a so-called professional musician when all of a sudden that world was not accessible to me anymore. Gone are the days where I can go up and down the steps into an orchestra pit or go peripatetically teaching music from school to school. My body just won't let me do it now. So I had to carve a new way of satisfying my own creative needs, and in doing so, I like to think I have created the most accessible platform for anybody else who wants to engage too. Part of the research and development was exploring the extent to which I could take my old way of working, which involved a lot of structure, a lot of planning, and identified pathways to demonstrate progression, and seeing how that would apply to people with hugely diverse needs and barriers to engagement, whether that be physical disabilities, learning disabilities, autism, or any other type of neurodivergence. And I very quickly learnt that formality just has to go. Now there's a difference, I feel, between saying that all structure has gone, but I think part of what makes it successful is the depth and detail of the experience that I have had to be able to quickly adapt to needs as they change in any given session. I work a lot with people with social, emotional and mental health challenges, and also with people with cognitive processing differences who might be able to engage in a very formal, structured way one day, but then for the next 2 or 3 weeks they are unable to maintain that focus because of what's going on for them physiologically. So having a very loose guide for structure and formality is useful, but the fundamental premise is to be participant-led and to let everybody in the space know that everybody's needs are different. And it has been really interesting learning how different people respond to that need for flexibility. I don't think there is a typical structure. Perhaps for the very young children that I work with, early years, we will begin with musical games. One of the things that I love about the early years provision is that they are encouraged to come in to explore the instruments. They're allowed to touch, they're allowed to make noise. And I think that's something that young children are not invited to do as often as I might otherwise like them to. But after they've had that chance to be loud and to be wild and expressive, we can bring it back round using the games, using sneaky bits of structure with verses and chorus, but allowing the freedom within that as well. In terms of understanding how students respond emotionally or socially is perhaps easier to identify because there's a lot of banter between the groups, and I love that they celebrate each other's solos and congratulate each other when they've done well. Emotionally, I see a lot of happiness, and I have tried to offer opportunities to discuss how music can make us feel, how music can be used to tell stories and things like this. So one of the most amazing experiences that I've had is working with Mark, who I mentioned right at the start, who is a non-speaking autistic person. And we refer sometimes to non-speaking autistic people as non-verbal, non-speaking, but Mark does speak, but he just chooses his moments and will often need some prompting or some guidance. But one of the activities that we do to help build familiarity and repetition is I want to play my drum, and on the word drum, you play your drum. And initially, Mark would not use his voice. It would have to be me saying the words. But as the months went on, Mark would start to speak it with me. And now Mark can lead that session, he can lead that game, either for himself on his own or in a group setting. And to hear how him engaging with music is encouraging him to use his voice, and most recently actually to hear him singing along to some of the songs that we've been learning, and writing. Mark is writing his own music, and as part of a community project that we're running at the moment, a group of disabled people with their family members are writing a piece about their pet dogs, and Mark is singing for us the words hello dog, and it's magic. That is really moving when I see moments like that. And actually this project is something that I would like to see rolled out much more widely. I am about to submit a huge grant application in the hopes of being able to take this community composition work out to different localities in North Somerset because of the success of the Portishead based provision that we've started up. And this is going to involve taking all of the instruments into different groups, perhaps with people who have never met each other before, encourage them to play, encourage them to think about how they want to use music. And we're going to create a brand new piece of music altogether from scratch. And music will be the tool to get people talking, to be in the same spaces together. Something that I struggled with the most after suddenly becoming disabled was realising how many spaces were suddenly not available to me, and how the way that I used to work was suddenly not available to me. And so a huge goal for me is to enable everybody in our community to have the choice to come together in the same room at the same time. For me, I think that's impossible. For me, I cannot separate the value of art from how that art is interacted with, either through the process of its creation or in its sharing with people. For me, the people always come first. And having been through the music college process and having been lucky enough to have exposure to all of these really wonderful high art musical works, I love it. It's so valid. It has a place. But I don't think I can say that I value those experiences any higher than playing Let's All Play Our Drum with Mark, to me the value is certainly equal. Engaging people is my priority, and I don't think society has enough opportunity to see and to celebrate what disabled people are creating, and doing all we can to elevate the visibility and audibility of our disabled creatives has to be the next step. So I think something we're noticing is how many people are being more open about the way they're struggling with their mental health and their overall well-being. And I believe that a large part of that surge is a lack of opportunity to just play, to have fun for the sake of having fun, to switch off. But the evidence for that, or some evidence for that, is the recent interest in creative health practice, which is, I'm conceptualising it as a sort of halfway between education and therapy. It's just an opportunity to switch off. For me, creative health, it feels like an opportunity to practice mindful engagement in something creative when you're not quite ready, or perhaps don't need that intensive therapy. It feels like a really important intervention to help people regulate, reconceptualise and switch off before things become distressing and problematic. I think the way that inclusive music and more community music can help our society is just giving more people more opportunity to be themselves.
I'll tell you a tale of a thrush and a snail, and the time they swam in the pool. When they splished and they splashed and had a good laugh, and we know the water was cool. Oh yeah! Dum